Meeting to order. Can you hear me? There we go. I'll call this meeting to order. Our first order will be to please stand for flag salute. Sloan West is going to lead us, so listen carefully for Sloan's lead.
Salute pledge. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Sloan. Thank you, audience. If anyone who wants to have a speaker card, if you'd be sure and bring that up, and we'll pass it right on down. Dr. Adams.
You're just
a few years
18 years too late. All right. Well, good evening, everybody. Thanks so much for being here tonight. And we're so excited to hear the Loma Vista students. And so I'm going to do a quick presentation, and then they're going to be next, just in case you're watching. One of the things that I like to do is show some highlights just from things that have taken place since our last board meeting until this one. So I'm glad there's so many people here. Just a few things, because we've been on vacation for a while and not that many school days, but always a lot going on. So here's some Loma Vista students on December 19th. Some kindergarten students doing the Tale of the Gingerbread musical. So some great holiday celebrations. As you know, we said goodbye to Officer Bollinger, who had been our school resource officer for several years. And this was his clap out through Garin. And we're really appreciative of all that he brought to our school and to our families. I want to congratulate a new team that we have, the Adamsettes, who performed at the Adams Winter Rally, and thank Mrs. Scott and Mrs. Wheeler for help leading this team. It was a great performance. Mrs. Person at Edna Hill School had many art museums that her students set up. So here's just a couple of pictures of some of the great work they did. It's always hard to capture fully all the great student artwork, but I loved seeing those as we went over. I want to thank Kyler Straight. Kyler was doing his Eagle Scout project. He's a former Brentwood Elementary and Edna Hill student. And his Eagle Scout project was to bring a memorial bench in honor of former Mary Casey Black teacher Ceci Martinez, who passed away. So a wonderful tribute to her. So thank you to Kyler, and he was able to bring her family out to celebrate that with him. A wonderful tradition that's gone on in our community over the last several years in honor of a former community member who passed away from cancer. The Tunnels of Joy took place, and these were some of the Cray students that were up there performing as part of the fundraiser this year. They picked a 6-year-old girl who unfortunately has a brain tumor who's in Oakley to dedicate their funds to. So I want to thank them for performing and wish that young girl well. Also, I want to thank everybody here who had a part in the Brentwood Regional Community Chest. So for those of you familiar with the Brentwood Regional Community Chest, this is a group that supports over 500 local families each and every year with food for their family, both non-perishable and then all the items for a turkey dinner. In addition, there are presents that are purchased for all of the children that are 18 and under. And it takes an outpouring of community support, and much of the food and toys is collected within our school district. And then there are volunteers that come together on Friday. So this was Friday the 20th that took place. I especially want to thank BTA, who came out and brought even some retirees out to help give out cookies and liquid to hardworking volunteers. And then Saturday is distribution day, where the families come around and receive those items. So a very successful event. And as you know, we kicked off 2025 here at Marsh Creek Elementary. This is Mrs. Gowry's 8th grade class at Edna Hill Middle School. I'd love so many of the creative things that our teachers do to make science exciting and come alive. So she was helping the students see the vastness of the solar system out there. And then take the opposite end to our TK students in Mrs. Sacco's class out at Montañez Elementary. If this doesn't make you smile, I don't know what will. So this was some perceptual motor activities that they did, and then ultimately ending at a dance party going forward. I want to congratulate Brentwood Elementary 3rd grade teacher Susie Redmond, who was one of the 16 teachers who was awarded a prize of $150 in a grant to help fund STEAM activities in her classroom. And I want to thank the California Retired Teachers Association for supporting those grants to our teachers and teachers in other districts and schools. I want to congratulate Mr. Morello and the Bristow Bears, who sung the national anthem at the Stockton Kings game on January 11th. Actually, I forgot to look up the score and see how they did, but in every game that they performed the national anthem, the teams have been winning. So I'm just going to assume that they won. They won. All right. Thank you. Nice job. All right. We're going to keep the streak alive. Okay. We need them to perform at the Warriors games every game now. So, and then also this week we were able to welcome our new resource officer, Officer Matt King. And so here he is out meeting students at Rondon, and we're thrilled to have him joining our team. And board, that is my report for this evening.
Thank you, Dr. Eaton. I think that we'll move ahead to our guests of honor at Loma Vista.
Yes, and we have the principal of Loma Vista right here with us now.
Good evening, board members, cabinet members, and our community members. I'm Mrs. Croy. I'm Julie Croy, the principal at Loma Vista Elementary. Tonight, we are presenting from LCAP goal number 1, and I have our wonderful first grade teachers with us, students, and I will introduce them in just a second. So LCAP goal number 1, we are focusing on best practices, and if we utilize research-based continuums of practice, implement adopted curriculum, use balanced assessment practices to support student learning. So the strategy tonight that we'll be sharing with you is providing a reading program that supports and meets students' specific needs. Okay. Oops. So with our first grade LEAP program, this is a reading program where teachers collect and analyze data, including FAST assessment, BUSD blending lines, high frequency word progress monitoring, formative assessments, and teacher observations. The teachers group students based on their phonics needs. They collaborate and plan lessons based on needs of specific groups. And then they provide explicit and direct instruction. And teachers feel a sense of grade level community with this program because they're working with all of the students in the grade level and with their colleagues. So just an overview of the program. This is phonics instruction. Students are shared with each of the teachers. They're grouped by data. And it takes place on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Fridays from 8:30 to 9:20. It's a 50-minute block. Within these blocks, we incorporate the intervention teacher, ISP teachers, and then the ELD. We also have ELD lessons during this time. All of our teachers start with Haggerty as a whole group, but all at different levels. So the students get the Haggerty at the level that they're at, and then also it teaches to specific needs of each class. I would like to introduce Tamana Dunbar, one of our first grade teachers.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Tamana Dunbar. Thank you for having me here today. I am in the intensive group, which these kiddos are still working on letter names and sounds. Some of them are still working on CVC words. So what we do is we start with Haggerty for 15 minutes as a whole group, and then we would disperse into 4 small groups. So I have the intervention teacher in there. I have ISP in there. I have including some aides in there, and we're a 6-to-1 ratio. So during that time, we're working on decoding, segmenting, we're working on those high frequency words, so giving them that extra practice that they need and filling in that gap. And I have our student speaker, Mateo, here.
Hi, my name is Mateo. I am in Miss Dunbar's Reap class. During her good day, we travel to elevate the sounds in the lid. My favorite part of Reap class is peppering out sounds and becoming a better reader.
Hello, my name is Judy Price, and I am the strategic group. And so my ratio is 6-1. So it's myself, and then I have 2 aides, Ms. Carmen and Ms. Victoria, in my class. We also start with Haggerty, and then we go to our small groups. We're working on blending CVC, and then focusing on phonics, and we use decodable books, and also working on sight words to help fill in the gaps. All right, Sloan.
Hi, my name is Sloan, and I'm in Mrs. Price's Leap class. During Haggerty, we use the roller coaster hand movements to listen for the middle sounds. A. My favorite part of Leap class is reading the books. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Renee Thomas, and in our class we are doing the approaching benchmark. So we work as a whole class or a whole group. We start out with Haggerty again, and then we move into a specific vowel sound and work on that through the week, working on written and both written and oral. Sorry, and then Lucas Smart.
Hi, my name is Lucas, and I'm in Mrs. Thomas's Leap class. In our Leap class, we do fun activities to practice our sound, spelling, and reading. My favorite part of Leap class is the chopping and the little books. We get pretty cool too.
Hi, my name is Tiani Misquez, and I teach the benchmark group. I have 27 students, and I have ISB aide and 2 high school heritage interns most of the time. In our class, we always start with Haggerty, like we said, and my students work independently, rotating through 4 fun workshops while I'm teaching the ELD class. And this is Harlow, and she's going to tell you more about it.
Hi, my name is Harlow. I'm in Mrs. Misquez's Leap class. In our class, we do 4 fun workshops each week. We practice reading fluency, high frequency word work, and writing strong sentences. My favorite workshop is computers.
And there she is. Good job.
My name's Trisha Willie, and I teach the challenge group. It's a really rewarding group because I have 33 kids that have already mastered the skills that we are at right now. So I get to push them a little further and do some activities that we wouldn't get to do normally in a regular classroom setting. So we start with Haggerty to get the basic phonics review, and then we move on to, we get to do all kinds of fun activities. We've been really working on making strong sentences and reading comprehension, but we will be moving into book reports and readers theater, and we'll be able to do a lot of small group activities that really pushes them and challenges them to use some of their skills that they're ready to use. And to tell us a little more, I've invited Haley. She's a second grader, but she was with me last year, and I wanted her to really share some of the fun things she got to do closer to the spring.
Hi, my name is Hilly, and I'm now a second grader. I was in Miss Willie's Leap class last year. We got to read chapter books in small groups and wrote book reports. My favorite part about Leap reading was the fun reading activities like spelling tic-tac-toe.
Hi, everyone. I'm Dawn Pavon, the Vice Principal at Loma Vista, and I get the honor of sharing with you staff voice. It's me. Just kidding. There we go. Just kidding. Okay. Staff voice. This program has really built a strong sense of community within our team and our students as we share students. It's great to be able to incorporate intervention, ISP, and ELD groups. And we love being able to share and celebrate the success of all students. And I got the honor of sitting in on a recent collaboration from our team, and just the joy that they find and the solutions focused mindset that they bring to their collaboration is just so cool to watch.
And I'd like to just share some of our parent voice. They said thank you for challenging my students so they won't get bored. I'm so happy my child is getting so much time in intervention this year, and I appreciate the extra support my child is receiving this year to help them catch up with their reading. And then impact.
Okay, so the impact that the kids are getting during the LEAP is they're getting 200 minutes of direct and explicit reading instruction for their specific needs. So it's 5 minutes, 4 days a week. And then each year we just keep getting better and better. We wanted to give you 2 actual students and see how much they've grown. So student MU, he started the year in August. We tested him and he came to us knowing only 16 out of 26 sounds. At that point, he was not able to read any CVC words. We tested him in December, and so in December, he was able to read 26 out of 26 sounds. He knew all the sounds. He was able to read 10 out of 10 3-letter CVC words. He was able to read 15 out of 15 CCVC words. So those are 4-letter words with blends. And then digraphs, he was able to read 7 out of 10. So digraphs are SH-TH-CH. Student MU started below grade level, but is now a benchmark student. Another example is student LH, and she is also identified an EL student. She also began the year only knowing 14 out of 26 sounds and not being able to blend any words. In December, she knew all her sounds. She was also reading 10 out of 10 CVC words. She was reading 15 out of 15 CCVC words, and she read all 10 out of 10 digraphs. So this student also is now at benchmark where she needs to be. We also look at going the other way. So there were a few students that may have been in the independent class, and then we see that they need more support from the small group. So then we place them in the small group so that they get that extra support that they need.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much for letting us share our LEAP program. We would like to end with our first graders coming on up here. And they have a special chant for you.
First grade, here we go. Learning, laughing, growing well. Friendship, kindness, helping hands. In first grade, we make great plans. Let's be curious, brave, and bold. In first grade, our dreams unfold. 1, 2, 3, hooray! Teach them all the left and right.
Wait there, kid. As you can see why this has become. You can see why this has become our favorite part of every program. And to show a little appreciation, we'd like to give each participating student a certificate. Mikhail, I see you back there. Great job. Thanks, Lucas. All right. Haley. Somebody got two? No. Yeah. Thank you, kids.
Thank you so much, Loma Vista. It's so wonderful to have all of you out here. Thank you so much, teachers, for making the time to come tonight. We really appreciate it. Students, you were amazing. Great job.
Now we know you came, we have a budget report, so if you would like to stick around. But at this time, I understand that there's homework and there's going home, so please.
In other words, run.
You can get.
I think after the pledge, we should do that little cheer. After the pledge.
Should I wait till 10:08 for the other two?
And they want to do it during public comment.
Okay. Give them a minute. While they're leaving, is there any board member that would like to add any comment or report? If not,
are you talking about like what we did?
yes.
Okay, on January 13th, I attended the CSBA trustees and superintendents working effectively together for the good of students. This was in Castro Valley Unified School District office.
Great. Anyone else have a comment? All right, at this time, I'm going to move to public comment. There are some things that we're asked to read at the beginning of each meeting, and I'm going to read that now. These items are for consent calendar requests for future agenda items and items not on the agenda. However, we're going to listen to all three right now. The remarks are limited to 3 minutes per person, and while we certainly encourage comments, unfortunately, state law prevents us from discussing items that are not on our meeting agenda. Public comments can be made at this time or during appropriate agenda time. We do take this very seriously, and if appropriate, staff will do follow-up. There's also a section about email and adding your email and how you can do that. So if you ever want to, please, we value these reports and read them. So I will, when I get a motion to open public comment.
Move the open comment.
Second.
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That was, it's 4-0 to open public comment, and I will start with Lynn Grishon.
My name is Lynn Grishon. I'm the CLC chair and part of our negotiation team. We've been told the district has no money for years. Our negotiations have been constrained by this no money message, but we do understand the challenges of our district funding. That's why it was such a surprise to discover that a new coordinator of human resources position was being proposed at an ongoing cost of $124,000 plus benefits. I'm sure the hardworking staff in our HR department does need additional help, as many departments do. It's just not clear if this position is the best way to provide that help. Would a full-time clerical aide make a greater impact on solving these workload issues? Before our newest school opened, we advocated for another much-needed computer tech. We currently only have 2 computer techs to serve all 13 of our schools. Every staff member in this district depends on technology to do their jobs, and every student uses technology daily to learn. There is a digital component in all of our curriculum, and we depend on our computer techs to support all of us. But no new computer tech was hired because the district has no money. Our instructional aides are the backbone of our schools. These professional women and men help our most vulnerable students succeed every day. Some also serve our medically fragile students through diapering, toilet assistance, tray clearing, monitoring, medical devices, and more for a small $41 monthly stipend. We tried again this year to increase that stipend, but we were told there is no money. This feels like a rushed process. This new position was never discussed at any of our budget advisory meetings, which include members of all of our bargaining units. It was never part of any district-wide budget communication. The only reason I discovered this new job proposal was because of the board packet emailed out Friday afternoon. For the cost of one HR coordinator, we could add a full-time HR clerical aide and a new computer tech. There are other options as well, but we need time to discuss them. Our board members have historically put great care in keeping our district fiscally sound through very difficult times. I'm requesting that the board please consider waiting on the vote to approve this new position until we can all clearly see how this ongoing cost serves the staff and students of this district, or if there is a better use for these funds. Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn. Thank you, Lynn. Cindy Lopez.
Hello. My name is Sydney Lopez, and I am a CLC veteran of 18 years and now also a Teamsters representative. I'm here tonight to voice concern over the newly created position that the board will be asked to approve tonight. I'm currently on the negotiating team for our members. When we negotiate items that require ongoing funds, we are met with insurmountable resistance telling us that there is no money in the budget. Things like putting a cap on the number of students that our OTs can see was a 2-year process that was reluctantly settled on by our group simply because our unit members were losing so much money in the process of negotiating. A $25 cell phone stipend was finally approved with such a big loophole that not a single one, to my knowledge, has been approved since the MOU went into place. Employees are paying more than ever before to get insurance for their families, while wage increases are fought with stories of budget cuts and layoffs. We cannot even get new filters for the air purifiers to keep our students healthy because we were told the money needed to be found. I fully understand that money is tight in the district budget, which is why I am here to ask why a new position costing over $124,000 per year plus benefits is being created to alleviate the workload of one department while other departments are drowning trying to keep this district running. The job being created is a coordinator of human resources. You will be told that this position is needed because in the last 5 years, 200 employees have been added to our district. These employees have been added to accommodate 1,100 extra students. That is 1,100 more Chromebooks, one more school site, and 1,100 more textbooks in every subject. Yet the tech department is still grossly understaffed, and schools still do not have 100% library services at every site. Library clerks are in charge of curriculum for their site and are oftentimes doing the work of 2 different positions without compensation or the time to get the work done. Currently, only 3 of our 9 elementary sites have 100% library services, and for the first time ever, we have an unbenefited librarian. Every site should have a minimum of 1 FTE for libraries, just like secretaries and custodians, no matter the population. My point is that the current hardworking employees of BUSD need to be taken care of before we start adding yet another new position to HR. HR has already gone from 3 to 7 employees in those 5 years. Think about the current overworked employees putting in countless hours of unpaid time to get their job done because the district claims it has no money. Please do not take advantage of the generosity and pride of your employees. Instead, provide what is needed to those who have been loyal and hardworking before you start adding new positions. Thank you.
Thank you. Carrie Ann Smith.
Hello, BUSD administration and board members. My name is Gary Ann Schmidt, and I am the lead instructional aide at Edna Hill Middle School. I'm here to also express concerns about action item 10.8. Please do not approve this position without thoroughly investigating the following. Last fall, as they mentioned, a cell phone stipend of $25 per month was approved by the district for employees that must use their personal cell phone to do their job. It would cost the district about $10,000 to pay a cell phone stipend to 2 secretaries at each school and to 2 IT personnel, secretaries that work from home late at night or early in the morning, finding subs for staff that have become sick or have had an emergency. So that first thing in the morning, these secretaries can be fully present for everyone else. So their administrative staff are not pulled from important activities to cover unfilled teacher absences. Their cell phones are also necessary to receive calls from staff out on campus for situations where going through the phone tree would be inefficient or put a student at risk. These underappreciated rock stars are the first faces of BUSD, and they deserve this stipend. It's been approved by their principals, but denied at the district level because the district can't afford it. But HR states this new coordinator position is necessitated by employee growth. Employee growth is a result of the increased student population. The increased student population that has resulted in more work for secretaries helping students and families and staff on a daily basis. Secretaries have absorbed this increased workload with increased distractions without the privilege of working in a quiet cubicle or behind closed district office doors and without paid overtime. The funding source is not specified on the agenda I've seen, but supposedly the new position will be funded by reducing the overtime being paid to other HR staff. Let's do some math. For someone generously making $50 an hour, obviously not school secretaries, overtime would be $75, and they would have to work 1,333 hours overtime to make up that $100,000. That's 133 hours of OT per month. But let's say that's met by 3 people in a clerical position that are paid $30 per hour. Those 3 people are working 75 hours of overtime per person per month. Is that what's happening? So where's the common sense in denying $10,000 for a cell phone stipend, but paying $124,000 plus benefits for someone with no different educational criteria than one of these amazing secretaries? What a slap in the face. Why don't we start the salary for this position at $64,000? The same starting salary as a teacher that is required to have a college degree, and it's still twice as much as a school secretary. Use the difference to fund the cell phone stipends for secretaries and IT. In the past, a librarian was told by a board member, "I thought you just read books all day." Not knowing librarians receive and distribute curriculum, fill in as Chromebook IT specialists, and until this year, they didn't have subs. Most volunteer as CLC reps, and they don't even get a formal lunch break. Be careful what you think you know, question everything. Did you know that per the district website, each member of management receives a $50 cell phone stipend? And how do you feel about a position being posted before you?
Thank you, Gary Ann. We
Because that
appreciate your
happened too.
comment.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who wished to speak? Then I would entertain a motion to close. Oh, I'm sorry. Do you have a card or please? Please step up. Yeah, we'll take care of that. Let's move. Go ahead.
Okay, hello, I am Rachel Lay, a student at Heritage High School, and I'm here to bring awareness to our speech and debate program and the growing need for this form of education for Brentwood elementary and middle schoolers. So, for a couple years already, Heritage has been the only school with a prominent speech and debate program in our city. We have doubled in size from the past year, and we have only continued to grow and build students' confidence. A lot of these people are my own teammates and my own friends, and they continuously tell me, hey, speech and debate is really cool. I've grown in my confidence. I've grown in my public speaking abilities, and I really want to do more. And at the same time, these middle schoolers are reaching out to us. These elementary schoolers are reaching out to us to try to find an opportunity to get involved, to better themselves through public speaking. Because over the past few years, we have been socially impeded by the pandemic. We have lost a lot of our social formative years, and a lot of people are recovering that through speech and debate programs. So when we reach out to these other schools like Adams Middle School, Bristow, and Edna Hill, we're often met with the comment that teachers are not interested, teachers don't have the resources, or we just can't do it. And I would just like to bring this program and these opportunities to your attention. And perhaps we can try to raise awareness for these programs because maybe teachers don't want to participate because they don't know what it does for kids or the benefits that it has for the general student population. So with that in mind, I'd like to just put this on your mind. I know the district is very busy with a bunch of different things, but yeah, speech and debate, something that you should be considering and something that students are asking for throughout the entire district. Thank you.
Please restate your name and your year in school.
I'm Rachel Lay, and I'm a junior at Heritage High School.
Thank you, Rachel. Please step on up quickly. There's one. They can both use the one.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Introduce yourself, please.
Yes. Hello, my name is Amara Espinosa. I'm a junior at Heritage High School, and I'm currently the vice president of robotics, FIRST Robotics. So we compete in competitions locally, and recently we've won awards. We're #1 currently in the league, and we've done so much good work over the years. We're the first team to reach states in around 12 years. But I want to acknowledge that a program that we used to do primarily at Adams Middle School, Lego Robotics, has been discontinued this year due to a lack of teachers being interested to support the program, and that is really discouraging because a lot of our technical leads are seniors this year, and they're leaving very soon. And the freshmen that I have seen come into my club and really want to make a difference primarily came from us volunteering at Adams and fostering this program together. I'm worried that without this program, when I leave, when my junior members leave, we won't have a legacy to continue. We are currently the only active robotics team in the district. I just want to ensure that for my future generations of robotics, I want our team to be the first team in Contra Costa to make it to state, world championships in Houston. That is my goal. So I would really, I know that there are a lot of limits that are imposed on teachers, and there are support systems that they need in order to thrive. But as someone who believes in the future of technology, as someone who wants students to become more creative, I know that, as we're growing into adults, the jobs that we will have, this is so important. So I really want to make sure that this legacy will be continued on, and I really hope that the district can find a solution to kind of jumpstart the program again. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next item is consent items. Oh, excuse me.
I'll make a motion that we close public comment.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
It is so moved and unanimously voted. We will move to the consent items. There are 8 to 8.10. Is there anyone who would like to pull anyone or make a comment about anyone individually? Then I'll entertain a motion. If not,
I'll make a motion that we approve consent items 8.0 to 8.10.
Second.
those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimously passes 4-0. We have no hearings or appeals. No presentations out of closed session. Item 10.1 was discussed in closed session, and this is the expulsion of student 12-2405.
I'll make a motion that we approve the recommendation presented to us for the expulsion of student 12-2024-05.
Motion's second the motion.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Item 10.1 passes 4-0. Item 10.2.
Hey, excuse me, Mr. President, before we get into that, I'd like to just make a quick comment.
Please do.
Lenore, I know I want to thank you on behalf of all of us for your very touching and appreciated note. We appreciate it. And if you'd like, you can go ahead and leave. No, seriously. All right. Could be another 2 years. The motion to have her leave is denied, so move on.
Thank you. Then we don't need a second. Item 10.2 is the approval of the 2023-24 annual fiscal audit.
Good evening. Each year, the district, as part of the annual budget process, there is an independent financial audit that's completed. And tonight, we're presenting the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2024. And tonight, I have Octavio Luquin from Christie White Associates, the auditor, to present the findings.
Good evening. Thank you for having me here. So again, my name is Octavio Luquin. I'm an audit supervisor with Christie White. I'll start off this presentation with a quick overview of the audit requirements, an overview of our audit process and responsibility, and then at the end, I'll go over some financial highlights and our overall opinions. So just discussing these audit requirements. The annual district audit is required by the State Controller's Office. As part of the audit, we will prepare an independent audit report on the financial statements where we express an opinion on the financial statements. We prepare a report on internal controls where we consider the district's internal control over financial reporting for the purposes of designing audit procedures that are appropriate in the circumstances for the purpose of expressing our opinions on the financial statements, but not for the purpose of expressing an opinion on the effectiveness of the district's internal control. A report on federal compliance and internal controls where we express an opinion on whether the district complied with the applicable compliance requirements related to federal programs. And we also prepare a report on state compliance and internal control where we express an opinion on whether the district complied with applicable compliance requirements related to state programs. And the audit process. We cover a broad range of areas in our audit process, which is split up mainly into two phases, the interim audit and the year-end audit. During the year-end audit, the interim audit, we focus on school site attendance testing and associate student body funds testing, state compliance testing as determined by the state audit guide. And we also document and test internal controls in areas such as purchasing and cash disbursements, payroll, and cash receipts. We also conducted a single audit, which includes testing internal controls and program compliance in one major federal program. This year, that was the special education cluster. We tested expenditures expended by the program, as well as ensuring federal compliance requirements were met. During the year-end audit, we focus on account balances, including expenditures, revenue, capital assets, and long-term debt. And then audit responsibility. So it's the district's responsibility to design and maintain effective internal controls, to prepare the financial statements, and to evaluate going concern. The auditor's responsibility is to provide an opinion, which is to provide a reasonable assurance that the financial statements are materially correct. We also conduct the audit in accordance with auditing standards generally accepted in the United States and these standards applicable to government auditing standards. And summary of our audit results. So as you can see here, for the financial statements, the opinion was unmodified, which is the highest you can get out of 4 opinions. Federal awards, no findings, no material weaknesses, and no significant deficiencies identified. In state awards, no material weaknesses, no significant deficiencies identified, and no findings. Key takeaways. So again, just recapping here, unmodified opinions, best opinion possible, no audit findings, no audit adjustments. Just in some key numbers here, capital assets, $217.1 million invested in capital assets, and long-term debt of $221.4 million. And that should be it. Are there any questions?
Are there any questions or comments for the auditor? If not, go ahead, Diane.
Can I make a
Yes,
comment?
please do.
Thank you, Octavio.
Thank you.
Also want a special thank you to Melissa Guzman, our coordinator of fiscal services. She is the one who spends an inordinate amount of time working with Christy White Associates and her team in fiscal services department.
Thank you. I think to get the highest rating is wonderful, and thank you for cutting to the back page so we'd get that. And thank you very much, Percy.
And this is an action item for the board.
This is an action item. I will entertain a motion.
I move we accept the annual audit, financial audit conducted by this question.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve item 10.2. Those in favor? Aye. Opposed? It passes.
Feel free to leave, sir.
You can leave. Thank you. The next item is an information item. This is a date on the implementation of science and reading difficulties screener.
All right, good evening, Board of Education. I'm very excited to be able to be here to share the work that we've been doing in CNI, and really it's the work that our coordinator Lizzie Barra has been doing around the science of reading. She's going to talk a little bit about what is it and where we fit in this world of science of reading. It's a big initiative at the state level, so we thought we would give you an update. She's going to get the bulk of the slides because she's done the bulk of the work, and then I'm going to talk about a little bit about the reading screener at the end.
All right, good evening, board members. Dr. Eden, it's kind of a great time to celebrate the work that not only I've done, but that all of our teachers involved in literacy have done around the science of reading. You got a little sample from our incredible team over at Loma Vista, because what they were doing was the science of reading. So tonight what I'm going to share is the definition of science of reading and what it is not, the guidance from our California Department of Education that they have passed along to districts regarding literacy instruction, and how our current adopted instructional materials do already align to the science of reading, and then what supplemental resources and trainings we've brought recently to our staff, and then what our next steps are, because the work's never done. So our basic definition is that it is a comprehensive collection of research completed over many years by experts in the fields of education, psychology, neuroscience, language development, and more regarding how we learn to read. So what it is not is a program that you buy. It's not a package with a label of science of reading. It's a body of knowledge. So this is an important quote by one of the people that have contributed to this general body of knowledge, that we aren't wired to understand written code. We are wired actually for spoken language. So it's very natural for a child to learn to talk and to walk, but it is not inherent that the brain learns to read on its own. We actually need direct instruction in order to learn to read. So this looks like a very interesting picture, but if you think about a piece of yarn with many threads woven together, this is what we call Scarborough's reading rope, and it is often found in many of the trainings around the science of reading. And on the left-hand side, you can see all of the pieces of knowledge or neurological processes that go into play into learning to read. And if one or some of those strands are weak, the overall reading rope is weak. And so our teachers study and understand this, and they are doing direct instruction to make sure every one of those strands is strong so that our students are strong readers. I mean, to do a couple of So this is a really nice timeline of how we learn to read, and it starts in infancy with the sound and language processing. As our students then learn how through song and through rhyme, they get that ability to develop phonemic awareness. And then we start connecting those sounds to letters, and then of course the reading of single words, and then of course reading complex text. Just like Loma Vista talked about those different groups and levels and abilities, we learn in a progression just like this infographic. So the California Department of Education has been promoting the science of reading, but in different ways and different phrases. But even in 2013 with the English Language Arts ELD framework, they have always called for a comprehensive and integrated model of literacy that offers evidence-based literacy instruction in the classroom, including explicit instruction in phonics, phonemic awareness, and other decoding skills. I want to take a moment to acknowledge the leadership of Mary Black and Julie Dooley, because we have always, or in the last few decades, had instructional materials that were aligned to this expectation that the state put when we adopted Open Court and Reading Wonders. So we have had those instructional materials that align to this expectation. So just a little summary, our elementary language arts program, Reading Wonders, has the components that the state expects us to deliver to our students. It has an oral language development component, concepts of print, phonological and phonemic awareness, phonics and decoding, sight words, and fluency practice. I know you can't see all the details, but what we did do is a review of the latest research on the science of reading and that reading rope, and we made a connection to the components in our instructional materials to make sure that there was evidence of it, and then we shared that at a training with our teachers. So this is just little samples of the things that we've done in our district. In the 23-24 school year, for grades TK through 3, we did a district-wide training, just a review of what the science of reading is and how it's connected with our instructional materials and practices. You notice from the Loma Vista report the mention of Heggerty. That is a supplemental material where kids do games with sounds, and they're manipulating individual units of sound, and that strengthens their phonemic awareness, which prepares them for getting ready for phonics and decoding. We've also done many trainings for supporting teachers on how to differentiate instruction with those different components of that reading rope. And then we've offered some book clubs, voluntary after school, using a really easy to read and engaging book called Shifting the Balance. And so even yesterday afternoon, we had 15 teachers engaging in more work around the science of reading. So I do want to also acknowledge the hard work of our reading intervention teachers. Our intervention teachers in our elementary schools have also reviewed the best practices for accelerating foundational reading skills. They use a program called Sonday that is aligned to the science of reading, and it involves a systematic, structured approach to phonics, fluency, and comprehension. I do also want to acknowledge some specific staff members who have been involved. It's not just me. Lindsay Waite, Teresa Sanchez, Marcy Bell, Angela Danson, Kimberly Sakai-Bowen, Patrick McGee, Tamara Golembo-Mancipit, and 2 other community members, Joni Smith and Lynn Gurney of the California Reading Association. These staff members or community members have contributed extra time to support trainings and giving more resources for those who want it. So our next steps are to continue offering training, especially with Heggerty. We are doing some more work on mapping sounds. That's called orthographic mapping. And we will also continue to collaborate with the California Reading Association and our coordinators from Contra Costa County Office of Ed. They also provide training. And there is new legislation on dyslexia screening, and Michael will address that.
So connected to the work on science of reading that we've been doing, the California Department of Education enacted a new law that goes into effect in the 25-26 school year, and it's a reading difficulties risk screener, so RDRS. What I would want you to know is a couple things. One, that first bullet where it said screening should be considered school's comprehensive instructional day and talks about pupil needs. We already really meet that screening purpose. Our FAST assessment is aligned with that piece. Where we fell short of the law is really in the last two words of the second bullet, where our screener looks for specific reading difficulties, including dyslexia. So what this means for Brentwood is that we were really hoping that our FAST assessment screener would be on the state list of approved programs. It was not. They approved 4 programs, and we are going to, what our plan is, because the 4 programs are quite varied and quite different, is that we would continue to use FAST. It is well utilized and implemented in our district and still gives us much good information. But we will be in grades, and I didn't put it on here, but this is for grades K through 2. Oh, it's over to the right. The grades K through 2, that we would implement one of the screeners from the list of 4 that's a smaller component that we feel would enhance what we already have and would allow us to meet the law. So that we'll be working to identify that which of the 4 programs. There's a couple that are a little bit smaller and wouldn't be duplicating FAST, and then our timeline and our rollout plan over the next few months. Questions from the board?
I had a question. Is there a diagnostic test that you're using to identify students who have dyslexia?
No, that's the part we currently have a gap in. So that's why we'll be looking at one of those 4 screeners that were approved by the state.
Okay, so it's an extra purchase and then allocated time.
It is definitely allocated time. It may or may not be an extra purchase. Some of the programs are free.
We are not first visual. Primary modality is not visual. I mean, the one that we depend on the most is visual. I thought was visual for most people.
I don't know which is the top one off my head, Emil, but yeah, everyone has their strength. It might be visual, but I think what Liz was referring to is that we don't naturally come wired to read. We have to be taught that.
That's good. Yeah, very good. Interesting.
Is there any chance that your program would eventually, the FAST, be approved? That's one of them. Is that the hope?
That is a possibility. They're going to continue to look at programs. I don't know about you, Liz. I haven't asked you this, but I was a little surprised that there were only 4 in the end, and they were really quite varied. And one of them, I don't know why CDE does this, but you have to implement this in grades K through 2. One of the programs only has a first and second grade component, so why would anyone choose that one? But so we'll be looking at one of the other 3 probably.
Thank you.
Thank you. This was an information item. The next item is the governor's 25-26 proposed state budget update.
Thank you. So the state constitution requires that the governor submit a budget to the legislature annually by January 10th. This is the budget for the next fiscal year that starts July 1st, 2025. And so the Governor Newsom did release his budget. It includes what they call a budget bill, which goes on to both sides of the House, the Assembly, and the Senate. So we've got the release of the governor's budget now. Between now and May, the House takes a look at it. They negotiate with each of themselves. They negotiate with the governor's office. And then on May 10th, after we have more data and information on revenues for this year for the state, he releases, it's called the May revision. So the state budget proposal that was just released is the beginning of that process. And similar, the reason it's so important is because it's the K through 12 education budget as well. And we begin our budget process. What happens is after the May revise, the legislature is required in both houses to approve a budget or combination budget, and then they send it on back to Governor Newsom. Legislature has to approve it by June 15th in order to get paid. And then Newsom will sign it before by June 30th. Although the governor has the what do you call it? The Constitution allows the governor to veto certain things in the the budget bill, if necessary. So really what we're talking about is how does that impact our district and our district budget? Because for example, at first interim, when we looked at the multi-year, 3-year projections out, for 25-26 and 26-27, we're using the most recent information, which was back in May from the previous year. So the things that have changed since then, one of the main things we're always looking at is the cost of living adjustment, which is a statutory amount, and the governor doesn't have to fully fund it. But what he did say is that as of right now, that for next year, 25-26, it would be 2.43%. And previously, so in our first interim budget, he had it at 2.93%. So it's gone down 0.5% in terms of what your LCFF revenues will come into each school district budget. So that is about $1 million reduction over 2 years between 25-26 and 26-27 in revenue loss. And so that is something we will take a look at as we move into second interim, and what the district would need to look at in those reductions, about $500,000 each of the 2 years. There will be some one-time discretionary money, which we haven't seen since basically COVID or intervention and learning. We know the total amount, but we don't know how it's going to be allocated out to the districts yet. But it is being called discretionary. It has, so it does say it could be used for any combination of what the district chooses to do. So, for example, I mean, we'll know the details hopefully within another week or two when the trailer bill comes out. But if we're having a reduction in LCFF revenue, that could be a way to help offset those costs. The other sort of good things are the governor has to say he's going to fund the COLA for categoricals, so special education, which they are, child nutrition, mandated block grants. So, and in some years that hasn't been funded to the same level, but it is this year. Just as a reminder, in his budget is that TK will be full implementation next year. And what that means is that all children who turn 4 by September 1st can enroll in TK. The more good news is the universal meal program, where we give all meals to students for breakfast and lunch, is funded again. It has to be funded each year by the governor. And overall, the state budget is balanced with no deficits, but it's early in the process. So what happens in our district is our next steps is on March board meeting will bring the second interim budget to the district, which shows this year's budget, and then the 2 out years, which are required by law, those will be changed. There will be some change ups in that based on this criteria. And that's the update.
Thank you. That too is an information item. Our next item is the mid-year LCAP update.
Hello again. So this is the mid-year LCAP presentation. I'm going to include some dashboard data in this presentation, as well as a quick update on goal number 1, our goal of implementing best practices. So this is a new requirement that started last year from the state of California, and it requires us to present to the board two things: all available mid-year outcome data related to our metrics, so data related to the LCAP and how we're doing on those metrics, and then where we're at with those expenditures and the implementation of our actions. Before I do that, though, real quickly, I just wanted to highlight a couple of Goal 1 updates and just reinforce that there are a couple of areas in Goal 1 that the Curriculum Instruction Department continues to work on. And I haven't spoken too much about these, a little bit on Mastery Connect and the tool that will help us be more standards-based and data-driven. And then also just we've had a focus in the middle school on encouraging students to be able to focus on learning by being able to retake assessments and projects so that they can demonstrate new learning and show that demonstration of the learning. I also wanted to remind you, as Dr. Eaton mentioned last week, that we are currently in differentiated assistance for our homeless student group because those areas, ELA math and suspension, were at either the very high or very low level. So you'll see some actions in here related to homeless students, and we'll continue to focus on that going forward. The next section of my presentation is going to focus on our metrics and our data. So how are we doing on that data that is listed in the LCAP and we'll be reporting out on. So you're going to see either that we don't have the data available yet because it's just not that time of year, or that the data shows we're not on target. The data may show we're making progress, but not there yet, or that we've met the target. So the first set of data here, and I'm not going to go through all these points of data, but you have the presentation and have had access to it, shows that in English language arts, which is that first row, that we're making progress. And I'm going to show you a graph in a minute that will show you the progress better than this chart does. And that in math, we're making progress. In terms of those students as measured by FAST, I talked about our FAST assessment system earlier. We've had a little bit of a decrease in progress there. So we're not on target. Our target is less than 8% of our students at high risk, and we're currently at 12. I do want to acknowledge that this data has different points of year data from year to year because it just depends on when it's released from the state or when it's available to us. So here's a little graph that shows where we're at in terms of our ELA and math, Smarter Balanced assessment scores. You can see that back in 2019, pre-COVID, in math, we were 3.5 points below standard on average. We then, when we reassess students after distance learning in 2022, were 27.5 points below. So that is that dip that was largely seen across the U.S. due to COVID. But you can see we're trending back up. We're not there yet, but we're trending back up in both ELA and math. And we have more work to do in math than ELA, according to this graph. The next sets of data show our behavioral data and how we're doing in regards to that. This is specifically student counselor contacts. We've met our target of over 35,000 contacts a year. Our special education rate has increased a little bit from the 2023 to 2024 school year. So we're not on target there. Our target is 14.5% or less special ed students. Our chronic absentee rate Miss Job has done some reports on that. We're making progress, but we're not quite where we want to be yet. And that's the next target there with the attendance rate. And then the last meeting, Miss Job also spoke about the school climate as measured by the Healthy Kids Survey. And we're making progress from year to year, but we're not quite where our target is. That desired outcome there in that second to last column, I should have noted, is our outcome 3 years from now. Well, 2 more years, because that's the LCAP cycle. It's a 3-year cycle. Suspension data, we're making progress overall, some groups more than other, but we slightly reduced the amount of students suspended, the percent of students suspended at least 1 day. Our English learner rate of students who are long-term are showing progress, but our staff diversity from 23 to 24 declined a little bit, so we weren't making the progress we wanted there. And our percent of English learners who are making progress went down just ever so slightly. So not on target there, but hopefully we can make some upswings in those 2 areas. Those were our metrics. So next I want to just share what the actions are that are in the LCAP. So remember, the LCAP is a 100 and something page document. But that, I would say a lot of the meat of it is what are the actions we're doing to improve those metrics and outcomes. So in some cases, you'll see that we haven't started that action, or it's in progress or completed. And some of this I need to explain because it looks like we haven't done anything because there's no expenditure spent, but in some of these cases, so action 1.2, for example, we had budgeted $80,000 for new teacher professional learning, but we had some one-time funds from the state for educator effectiveness that we used instead. These actions and these expenditures are specifically around LCFF funds. So it's the funds that are specifically earmarked for unduplicated students. So in that case, we did do new teacher professional learning. We just used other funds. And that really is the same for 1.3 and 1.4, where we had a lot of one-time funds for professional learning. Similar for the new adoption support. So all those things are in progress other than 1.2, which we completed prior to the school year. We just used other funding sources. 1.6 through 1.10, and you would be here all night if I went over each individually, so I'm going to kind of summarize and then you can ask questions. You can see that 1.6 is our Mastery Connect program, which we have completed that purchase, even though we haven't completed all the support for it. We're working on common assessments, and similarly in transitional kindergarten, we had other grant funds that we used there. And then there's some staffing in my department that supports all these programs and the actions included. Then we have some specific actions that we're required to write around groups of students who are struggling. So some outcomes for students with disabilities, homeless, and then some of the sites that are struggling more than others in English, language, arts, and math. Again, some of those are funded through other one-time funds, or some of them are expenditures that we're working through that really have not much costs attached to them. And then we have release time for committees and stipends for teacher leads included in there. Our curriculum adoption, 1.17 you'll see sort of repeated in different places here, but these are the monies that sites get to focus on the 4 board goals. So sites received across their sites $342,000 to work on best practices, and about half of that has been spent. You can see another staff member. Attendance programs 2.1, I had had to call that out as an action, but it's really captured in the next slide, 2.3, where sites have funding to focus on attendance. Got some busing costs to help us get some of our unduplicated students to school, focus on African American suspension without expenditures attached to it, and Kirsten and Justine's Culture and Climate Committee. Work on restorative justice, SST process development. Again, a lot of these are things you've either seen through our board presentation on our goals or through other presentations. And then our counselors are in there as well. Working to the end of this thing, we've got the site funding grants for culture, vice principals, campus supervisors, our EL work, our second step program focused on behavior. So all those things are in progress, and expenditures have started and are in progress. Elevation is our tool for our English learner monitoring. We've pretty much paid for the purchase of that program for this year. So far, the dual language work has been focused on research, so really no costs attached to that. And you can see some of the other things that are part of our focus and are in progress. Language acquisition programs, EL professional learning. Here you'll see that we fund some additional sections for middle school, our ELD sections, our Read 180 sections, and then some stipends for our English learner leads. Again, all those things are in process or progress, along with our site grants to focus on equity. So that's that site funding for that goal. A lot of information in that. I was trying to make it as quick, not overwhelm you, but give you a sense of where we're at. We will continue the work on all these actions and focused on these metrics, and then that will sort of evolve into a rewriting of our LCAP for next year and the process that Dr. Eaton engages us in to gather all that feedback. Any questions?
It's always SBAC scores, the state scores are always upsetting when they're below, and I know it concerns community and it concerns us too, and I'm glad to see the different programs that we're continually working on to bring those goals up. But thank you.
I appreciate that. Yeah, there's a lot in there that should support that. So
thank you for the way it was organized here. There's a lot going on in the school district.
Yeah.
But, so sometimes you can't see the different focus that you have going all through, and you laid it out here pretty nice.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Thornhill. And those last two next to the question mark are links to, so that's a link to the actual LCAP and a link to the metrics. And if you dig deeper, and you can definitely get lost in it, but if you have any questions, let me know.
That was an information item as well, so we move to item 10.6.
Yeah, board, just a quick update and a reminder that this is the time where we start our strategic action planning process for the following year. And so you'll see in there the timeline. And so following this meeting, we'll start sending out surveys to our staff and our community members. In addition, we'll start forming the teams that we have to come together for those processes, including that we're hoping to have a couple of board representatives as well. So look for there, it's there for you, and you'll continue to hear more of that as we go through.
Any questions or comments? If not, that too is an information item. The next is item 10.7, the enrollment projections.
Hi, good evening, board. I want to bring to you our enrollment projections this evening. At this time, here's some of the variables that we have to monitor and take a look at. K registration will occur between February 1st and March 14th. Intra open enrollment started already and will end March 1st. Intra open enrollment from April to May, that's our second open enrollment. We expect to see increases in enrollment at Adams, and we expect to see increases in TK due to changes in the age eligibility. the projected data at this point, and these variables, I'm going to skip ahead to what we looked at was this is based on trends that we are seeing. This is based on past enrollment numbers. This is based on demographer data and where we see developments coming in. So increasing TK by 4 FTE. We'll continue to monitor that through the year. Increase K-5 by 2 FTE, and increase middle school by 2 FTE. The sites have not been determined at this time. We'll continue to monitor that enrollment where it comes in at. As you all know, that when, especially as it pertains to TK, we tend to get a rush during the K and TK enrollment process. That's really only about a third, and the other third trickle in from then until May. And then inevitably, we will have TKers that will show up at our schools in June and July, and our summer enrollment process, which we typically see about 100 students enroll in the summer enrollment process. I think Ron Nunn will argue that they all show up in July to register for TK. And so those are some of the trends that we tend to see and that we'll be monitoring to see where that growth is at. It is likely that we will come back to you and either change where that FTE is going. It may increase at the middle school and decrease at the elementary school, or you may see additional increases. Our next steps, we'll update the board in February. We'll continue to monitor growth. We'll add the K registration numbers to the projected enrollment data. We'll add the intra numbers from open enrollment 1. And then principals will receive their staffing numbers by March, and then subject to change based on enrollment. And as I said, we'll expect to see changes in K and TK and at the middle school. Any questions?
Thank you. The next item is 10.8. It's one that 3 of our speakers addressed. It is, Chris, I believe you are the presentation of the approval of the new job description. Approval of new job description. I'm sorry, on the mic.
Thank you, Mr. Geddes. Yeah, so this action item before you tonight is about adding a coordinator of human resources to the HR department. And I really appreciate the speakers tonight and what they've said. I would agree that many of our departments are understaffed, right? We have struggled that for years. We often see cuts and we eliminate positions, or we change things around, or we add more work to individuals, and then we never get to build it back, right? As money comes in state, it doesn't usually equate to adding more positions. And so the struggle is real, and I understand where they're coming from. This is my community. I drive around town. I see people on Saturdays at school sites working. I see folks working late in the evening at school. My wife is a teacher. She is in her room every weekend. So I get the concern out there. And they're not wrong in saying that we're going to equate it to the increase in enrollment. We've had an increase in enrollment. We've had an increase in staffing. We've seen 200 positions added since 2019. I want to remind the board when I came into this role 2.5 years ago, we had 63 open positions as of July 1st when I got the job. 63 open positions, and we were opening up at July 27th. That's a lot to fill. And so we did add one position. We have 4 HR positions, and one of those positions is a recruitment position that we added 2.5 years ago. That was funded as a result of the overtime that was happening in the department already. And so I want to talk first about what this person will be doing. And I think everyone that ever talks to me about HR has heard me say that we're understaffed. And that comes from a study that was done 4.5 years ago. And in that study, it had recommended 2 different positions. One was a director of HR or a coordinator of HR. A director of HR would be more expensive, and it would require an admin credential. This is a coordinator. And so why a coordinator? As I talk to individuals throughout the district and they call me asking for support, it's usually because one of my team members has not gotten back to them and the team is severely impacted. Union presidents call me and say someone hasn't gotten back. I get CC'd on emails, and there's things that we just can't predict in HR. Like right now we have 40 employees that are out on leave, either personal leave, FMLA, or workers' comp. That's a lot to manage, 40 employees out on leave. There's timelines that are involved in that, and it's impactful. I don't have time in my role to be able to monitor that, so I'm dependent on my team to be able to do that. If they have questions, then they have to wait for my availability to be able to respond to that, or they're calling someone at the county office to get support. We're incredibly impacted. than that. We've added 139 classified employees since July. That's not just an employee coming in to fill a position. What that means is that my team has touched that paper or that process 4 to 5 times. And so each time that there's another phone call or there's another question about that draws out more time. And so they're impacted by that. School districts of our size, school districts across California, have one HR person for every 100 employees or one HR person for every 1,000 students. So our team, not counting my role, would have 10 to 12 employees in our HR department. We have 4. My role as assistant superintendent is primarily HR, but that's 80% of my role. There are other things that I do that are not HR related. And so my availability for my team, there's 50 days a year. Of the 258 that I work, I would argue I work 365, but I get paid for 258. And as many people out here work much, much longer than their calendar, right? And so in that 50 days a year that I'm in negotiations or I'm meeting with union leaders in roundtable discussions. And so I'm not available to my team. I need a person in this role to be able to be responsive to my team's needs, to be able to answer questions about leaves, to be answer questions about FMLA. We have 27 employees out right now we have 27 employees this year that'll be going out on maternity leave, which is a TK classroom in 4 years, and that's good for us. But that severely impacts us, right? That severely impacts Gabby and the work that she does for certificated. That impacts Lisa and the work that she does for classified. Monitoring that is difficult. And I recognize Gary Ann's argument about a clerk, and I get where she's coming from. It would be much, much cheaper to do that. And Gary Ann's one of my favorite people ever. And so I get where she's coming from. But much of this work is not done by a clerk and can't be done by a clerk. Seniority list, placing someone on a pay scale cannot be done by a clerk. That's the role of a coordinator or myself. And could things be shifted around? Yeah, probably so, but that wouldn't equate to a full-time employee. Much of the work that is required in this role and monitoring, especially as it pertains to credential monitoring or salary or answering questions of employees. And I'm sure you've all had complaints about the HR department, about someone not getting back to them. And usually it's about my paycheck was wrong, I wasn't placed properly on the salary schedule, my units weren't considered correctly, things like that. We had 50 changes in column placement for certificated employees alone this year. That equates to a lot of time having to look at each one of those. Where did they go to take the class at? All of that. That's impactful. And so that's why we are asking for this position and it doesn't even get us close to what the ratio should be, right? And so it's a position that's critically needed to be able to support the staff of the school district and ultimately the students of the school district. And so that's why we've brought this before you tonight. I do want to say about the costs. And so I recognize that. I disagree respectfully with Gary Ann's math, and that's okay because I understand that I have a different lens than she does. Right now we're on track. We're spending over $4,326 in overtime. At this rate, when we're 12-month employees, we'll spend $55,000 this year in overtime alone. That doesn't add up to the comp time. My team already has 350 hours of comp time, and we're in January, right? That's time off the books, right? So I'm going to give them that time off. So at this rate, they're easily will be up to 600 hours by the end of the year. We've also brought in additional staff. Excuse me, I said 350, I meant 150. So we'll be at 300 at the end of the year. We have brought in extra staff. We heard the complaints earlier this year about not having enough substitute teachers. We had about 163 substitute teachers in September. We brought on extra staff to do that. That was time card. That's not a permanent staff member. 3 hours a day, 5 days a week, at 9 weeks. We're now up to 130 teacher subs, and we have over 300 subs in the district for classified in addition to that. So that took additional time. We had another person come in at 8 hours every Friday doing that type of work. And then we have an occasional person that comes in that does do clerk type of work. Typically that's about once a month. They work for a day and a half, 2 days, but that we don't have enough for them to do to be able to be a full-time employee. We need this coordinator to be able to support the team, answer questions, be able to get on the phone to CTC when the rest of the team doesn't have time for that, be able to call the county to find out about credentialing. The piece I want to add to that is that right now, things are very different than they were 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 5 years ago. 40% of the certificated staff that we hire don't have a credential. they're in process. And so being able to be responsive to their needs, be able to contact the CTC and be able to file, there are 4 steps that need to be taken for a teacher to get their credential. That has to be followed up on quickly. And so right now, there's no one that can monitor that other than myself working with Gabby Villaseñor, who's our credential analyst, to monitor that. So that's another piece. Another law that just went into place January 1st is that every person that we hired, we have to contact every school district that they work for. Not 3 references like we typically do. Every school district that they work for to ensure that there was no egregious acts. So having someone oversee that and monitor, it's the law. It's a compliance issue. To be quite honest with you, there are things that are not being done in HR that we don't have time for. And what happens is something comes to us and then we go, oh no, and we dig into it further and start cleaning things up. And so my team is constantly playing catch up as a result. I certainly recognize the impact that this has. I would tell you that we are already, if you take the comp time, you take the time that in the overtime, and you add that to the people that we have, you're at about 90 to 100,000. That doesn't equate to exactly what this role will cost us, but we're close. And but I recognize the fact that there are many departments out there that are impacted. There are many teachers out there that are impacted and putting in hours that they're not paid for. And I'm honored to work with them, and I'm honored to be part of this district. And so I ask you to consider this, and if you have any questions, I can answer them.
How did we come about the starting or the salary for this position?
It's equal to the coordinator positions that we currently have.
And how many are those?
We have 2.
And just confirm this is a year-round position?
This position is 210 days.
Is that full-time?
It is full-time, yes, yes. So 210 days, it obviously is longer than what a teacher works or an aide works. It is less than what our analysts work, but that's what a coordinator position is. If we were to add days, then we would be increasing salary.
The only last thing I have to say is I met with a group of BTA members back in December, I believe it was, and we talked about various things. One of the number one complaints was HR, as far as not getting back to anybody, or the slow process that it takes to hire substitute teachers and so on and so forth. So I'm hoping with that salary, we get somebody super experienced in this area where it's not going to require a lot of training and stuff, and will allow us to hopefully catch up if the board approves this. So that's all I got to say.
So, thanks. It's off. There it is. So, how long will this be? How much into the future will this be before we actually meet that, the extra money that you're spending? So if you're like 3/4 of that position is being covered now, how long will it take before it's 100%?
Well, my guess would be by July, because this is enrollment season. So typically my team is putting in a lot of extra hours to get ready for, not enrollment season, I'm sorry, recruitment season. And so we have multiple recruitment fairs that we go to, including Saturdays and late at night, right, at the various colleges. We go to about 7 to 10. And not to mention the job fairs that we would be doing later on in the year.
I think it's one of the important points I want to make is I don't think that Mr. Calabrese is stating that the entire cost of this employee will be covered by the overtime that's been taking place so far. I think it's a portion of it, right? And so it's weird because we're covering a fiscal year and a school year, and so his estimate was about $90,000 is what you were saying.
And I'm saying that we would hit that by about July at this rate.
Yeah.
So some of the overtime would be eliminated though, correct? Okay.
Absolutely, has to be.
Anybody else?
No, I just know that administrative ratios, as things grow, it's our administrative ratio in this district is quite low compared to most other districts, right? And when we compare districts, and I've compared districts, you get into areas like this area and the job description, you have to dig deeper because often, as you say, they have assistants and more assistants and specialists that are not part of the HR description of job description. And so as I look into it, you actually have a broader description than most districts. Correct. Considering the size of the district with now at 10,000 students.
Yeah, I think when we compare ourselves to other districts, it's clear that we have a much smaller district office than most other districts, and we have a smaller human resources department. I do think I want to honor the argument that was made earlier by the speakers. It's also true that we have a much smaller technology support department than we need as well, right? We struggle in multiple departments, and so part of our role, and it's challenging in hard financial times, is to try to figure out the things that behind the scenes that keep the district moving and supporting our staff and our students, right? So coming into multiple classrooms and seeing that a teacher is covering on their prep because we weren't able to get a sub, or seeing students that didn't have a teacher until the third week in school because it was hard to get them through the system in a timely manner, that's not something we want to be accepting of, right? And so while it's not as exciting to add behind the scenes, it's critically important for our students that we consider that as we go forward and trying to keep up. But it's also the same when you walk into a classroom and there's 3 Chromebooks that aren't functioning, right? That students are having to buddy up, that we also need to make sure that those needs are being met as well. And so those are ongoing conversations. I think as Chris and his team has talked to multiple employee groups across the year and U board, we've heard from multiple people throughout the year at our board meetings and informal gatherings about how challenging it's been in an HR environment over the past couple years in terms of getting subs, getting supports, getting staff in on time. That's why we're coming to you with this recommendation at this point. And so ultimately, it's my responsibility to make the recommendation. I'm making that recommendation, and I want to honor the people that work behind the scenes at the district office because they do a lot of work that's unseen and it's very challenging and very difficult, just like many of our employees that are out at our school sites that are doing difficult and challenging work that's critically important as well. But the best way that we can support them sometimes is adding things here, right? And that's sometimes hard to see.
I would like also and the speakers brought up some of these issues, the costs and things that are brought up to increase our support in those areas. So even if we don't have money, we at least can set goals and work towards those objectives. Thank you.
Also, I just want to confirm this is a working position. By that, I mean, we're just not putting a supervisor in there to check the other 4's work and stuff. It's actually this person will be involved in the daily operations, not just overseeing the daily operations.
Correct.
Okay.
There are specific tasks that this person needs to carry.
Yeah,
and compliance issues.
We don't need another chief. We need more Indians. So, anybody else?
There are no other questions or comments. I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve the new job description in 10.8.
I second.
We have a motion and second to approve the new job description item 10.8. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? It has passed. Item 10.9, the approval of administration services waiver.
Board, this is an item in front of you to consider an administrative services waiver for our newest program specialist who's going through and working on their credential now. It's a standard operating practice, but we're required to bring it to you in public session.
I'll make a motion that we approve the administrative services waiver on 10.9.
Second.
It's been moved and second to approve item 10.9. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Is there a board comment for an additional item for the next meeting? If not, I'll entertain a motion to close.
I'll make that motion for sure that we end the board meeting. I'll close the board meeting.
Our next board meeting is February 19th. We look forward to having you all back. Thank you.
Thank you.